Good morning. It is Mon from Inspired and Intentional here. Today, I want to talk about creativity and how I believe that there's no wrong way to create. Now, this is a multifaceted discussion about a few topics that kind of come into this subtopic. But I figured I wanted to point out that I understand that a lot of the things that I'm going to say sound contradictory to the fact that I am actively doing art while I'm talking. But that doesn't take away from the points that I'm about to make. I think that creativity goes way beyond just art. And if you don't think that you're creative, I think you're thinking about it too much. And if you want to be more creative, I think you need to think less. Now, the reason I say that is because creativity shows up in so many forms. It shows up in, yes, the physical, literal sense of creating art, but creativity also shows up in problem solving or meal creation and cooking or workout making a new workout plan, or problem solving in general. I think that creativity is the act of making something out of nothing, be that you're making an idea out of something where nobody had an idea before, or you are taking tools and using them in a way that they haven't been used before, or you are creating a idea or a thought process out of something that hasn't been thought or done before. And that is truly beautiful. But when you think about it, if creativity is more than making physical art, which it is, more people should be creative then, and more people should consider themselves creative. If you've ever improvised, made up a recipe, made up a dance, or used a tool a different way, or in the complete moment out of nowhere did something that made perfect sense, well, hate to break it to you, but you're creative. I don't hate to break it to you. It's fun. And being creative is such an important factor of living a bold life and living a vibrant life and living a happy and positive life. Now, beyond the fact that I think that art creativity is more than art, I would also like to mention that there's no right or wrong way to use tools either. So by this, I'm talking about the act of physically creating art, but I'm also talking about the other acts of creativity. And I know that safety and like using precautions and using tools like in a way that is safe is important. Yes, and I'm not saying that that's what I'm meaning here, but simply what I mean is that I've used ketchup as an art tool. I've used an electric nail file as an art tool before I got a Dremel. I've used so many random things in ways that they weren't necessarily supposed to be used, or things they're not supposed to be used for, to create something or to carry out an idea. Because seriously, you don't need the perfect setup. It doesn't have to be physical art, whatever it is. Whether you're using a strainer in an innovative way while you're cooking, or you're using a machine differently than it's made for, but still safely in working out. Like, is my point getting across here? There's no wrong way to use tools so long as you're using them safely. And that is part of creativity too. Because if you're taking something that you have seen used or that is used often around you all the time, and you're doing it differently, that's also creative. That's also creativity at work. And that's creative play. And there's power in that. And that's also problem solving. That's also everything I mentioned earlier, where it just flows from creating something out of nothing. And maybe you're creating something out of random pieces that should be something else, but instead they turn into what you make them. That's also creativity. To further on my example, I was bored at summer camp at lunchtime, and there was still an hour left to just like have free time and do whatever we wanted. And I wanted to do art, but the art section of the camp wasn't open yet. You couldn't use those tools. So I literally used ketchup to make red paint, and I used burnt matches that I found at the fire pit as charcoal. If you want to create, create. There's no wrong way to do it. And guess what? That stuff works. You don't need anything to create as long as your brain is thinking innovatively or creatively. When we're talking about doing creativity wrong, which we already discussed that we can't do, I think that there is some subjectiveness of the word wrong. What wrong looks like to one person might be absolutely genius and innovative and game changing for somebody else. And I think that due to the subjectivity of the word wrong, if one of the reasons that you don't think you're creative is because people have told you you're doing it wrong, you're giving their words too much power, and you're forgetting that how you define creativity and what you define as wrong matters. And let's not open the can of worms of moral high ground and morality and all that stuff, because we are strictly talking in the context of creativity and creating. But I stand firm that wrong is subjective, and just because it's wrong for somebody else doesn't mean it's wrong to you. I've been told so many times that I'm doing something wrong, but it worked out in my favor, oftentimes, honestly, better than trying the way that other people have told me to. Because what works for me in a creative sense won't work for everybody. And that's just the fact of life. So if you think for any reason that the way you create or the feelings that you get when you're creating are leading you towards wrong, I invite you to discover and reflect on what is wrong and why do you think it's wrong. Did somebody tell you that, or are you just putting a mental block on yourself? Oftentimes, if you think you're not creative and if you think you're doing it wrong, you're just thinking too much. I know I alluded to that earlier too, but the best way to be more creative and find your creativity is to think less and do more. I have one last topic that I want to kind of jump into in regards to creativity is wrong and there's no wrong way to create. And that simply is fear versus flow. Because I don't know if you've ever felt this, but if you've ever been problem solving or creating or just in the creative mindset and thinking about something creative and you've let fear stop you, I'll say it again, and I've said it before. You're thinking too much. You don't need permission to create. You don't need permission to be creative. You don't need permission to flex that side of your brain and those muscles. And if you think you do, give that permission to yourself. That is so valid too, self-permission. For example, I've been creating art forever. And I told myself it's not valid. I told myself that nobody wants it. I told myself that it's not good enough. And that A, that's totally fear talking. And B, I wanted to find out whose voice that I was hearing in my head, because I knew that wasn't me. And it was fear. And I understand that fear is a part of me, but what I'm talking about is the fact that it was accumulation of other people's thoughts that I put from them. Nobody's ever told me my art's not good. Nobody's ever told me that I'm not creative or that I shouldn't do something or that it's unrealistic and I shouldn't try to make money from my art and sell it and be a big name in art. But the way that I perceive others seeing my art and seeing my creativity is that way. And my fear has given them power that and thoughts that they haven't even thought or that they might not ever think. And if they do, how much power do I really want to give those people? I think the same thing goes for anybody with creativity or who wants to be creative or is a little bit scared. And honestly, I think that translates into life a little bit. But I just want to sum this all up and say there is no wrong way to create. There's only your way. Like I said, there's no wrong way to use tools. There's no wrong way to create, and it's not just limited to art. Fear is not a reason to not create. And the whole wrong thing is subjective. So, with those things in mind, I want to leave you on a thought. What is the weirdest way you've ever created something or come to an idea or used your creative brain? I want to know some weird and awesome things that come out of your creativity. But let me know in the comments. I would love to see you next time. Have a great day. Thanks for watching Inspired and Intentional.